Oh, I mean like, Guten Tag, wie geht's? Ganz gut, I hope. Is this like red light, green light? the, this is a micrometer with a microphone. Anyways, just wanted to get everybody caught up to date, but before we go any further, this filming thing is not my style. I was going to be a successful writer and went to the London Book Expo in, well, I guess it was London. And 3 days before we were supposed to go there, they canceled it because of that COVID thing back in the olden days. Thank goodness now that's over, but now we've gone to this new video mode. So I've decided that I really don't want to talk to people or get anybody to, write and send letters and that kind of thing because, well, I won't answer them, probably won't read them. Unless, of course, you go to my website, Jesus Christ Jeffrey, and in there, there's a little thing that says billing, and you can send me money. Now, what I'd like to do is, I don't really want $1 or 50 cents or a quarter a pop or whatever. I don't want your email address, your website, or anything like that. What I'm really looking for is, these are the little flyers that I took with us to London and tried to pass them out. I think my daughter's got some film on that. Maybe she can slice that in, but if you take a look at this, my plan was to sell the rights to my books, the 3 of them I got out there right now. Jesus Christ Jeffrey in the beginning, Jesus Christ Jeffrey in the end, that's the one where I died, and then Jesus Christ Jeffrey, the final, what was it, the last one? Yeah, I guess it was the last one. Well, I lied at that because it's not the last one. I'm writing the ones about the in the middle. So you can see if you want to buy me $50,000 for each book, yeah, it buys you about half interest, and if you want to, you could send the whole amount, or you want to check me out, send $1,000. I'll come anywhere and we can talk about it. Anyways, enough of the commercial. Let's get on with the real stuff. Once upon a time, I was into artificial intelligence, and I was on the top of the pinnacle of the heap before my smart mouth got in front of me. I'm not supposed to talk with that southern accent, so I'll talk with a Nebraska accent. How's that? Would that be better? Well, here I was. This was the days where I was running Footloose and Fancy Free, and I had a good buddy of mine, Mr. Mitchell. He was my boss on the industry issues, and he was an old cowboy. I really appreciate him. I could use his name because he died of cancer. He smoked, drank Miller Lite, I guess it was. Maybe it was Miller. Anyways, he was a pretty good guy, and he let me go ahead and run around the country doing this AI stuff. Expert systems, neural networks, collapsing, expanding paradigms, or whatever you have. I was allotted money, and I could go to places as long as they pay for the plane ticket, and I'd have to take care of everything else. And they'd, using the Northwestern Bell, US West, AT&T, whatever I had to say to get in the door. Well, one time in Comdex, I went there, and there was a bunch of other people from other telephone companies there, and they decided, well, we'll go to Tilly's or whatever that place is where they have bull riding. Well, I went to this little bull riding event, and we had ribs. That's back when I was eating meat. Don't like to eat meat because you got to kill something in order to eat, and I don't believe in that. But anyways, we went to Tilly's, and they had this mechanical bull. Well, I had a bad back, just from running and biking and falling down and that kind of stuff. And these guys said, well, Jeff, they knew my history. They said, there's a mechanical bull. Why don't you get on that thing and show us how it's done? Well, in my prime, I probably could have hung on for a while, but I'm an old guy now. So I decided, well, discretion is the better part of valor. So I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll go. So I walked over, and the 2 guys, there was one guy with a cowboy with a broke arm on one hand, and he had a buddy, and they were running the little mechanical bull. And I pulled out a $20 bill for each of them, and I gave it to them. And they said, "Hey, gentlemen," I said, "I got to be honest with you. I said, I've been on the back of a bull once in my life, and I'm not really looking forward to getting on this one. But you see those guys over there, I got to try to impress them. And I was just wondering if you could help me out." These cowboys, they just kind of smiled and said, "Yeah, you betcha, no problem." So I go over, hobble over, and get on the mechanical bull. And then they start this gently rocking thing, and then they start, giving you the little up and down, and you're going like, "Oh God, oh please, no, no." Well, these guys were so good. They sat there, and every time I got out of balance, they'd put that bull back underneath me. And so I'm riding this like a, yeehaw, yeehaw, and all these guys are over there with their tongues hanging out. And then when they got faster and faster, and the cowboys got tired of playing this game, they just decided, okay, and they just went, plopped me onto the mats on the floor, and that was my mechanical bull riding days. Well, Mr. Mitchell says you can go these things, but we only got so much budget. So I always took my sleeping bag and my backpack and mat, and I'd sleep out in the bushes. And I'd go to the conventions. Well, these conventions, they were really cool, man. The latest and greatest. Everybody's talking about how they're going to make machines think, and I'm going, I need that because I don't do much of it on my own, as you can tell. Well, there's two ways you can, save money when you're there. Don't eat. That's quite a bit, and walk. So if you don't take taxes and you walk, you get so much cash that you can go ahead and, write off. So that's what I was doing. Well, I went to these hotels, and they all had their little suites where all they tried to wine and dine us. So they'd have these little, sandwiches, and they'd have little hot dogs and that kind of stuff, and then all the free things you could drink and all that, and loaded up, tanked up, and then I thought, well, where am I going to sleep tonight? I kind of go stumbling back down to the beach, and I'm thinking, well, I'll just, throw my bag out here and sleep along the shore. Now, I'm telling you, that's not a smart thing to do. Because you think, well, sand, there's not going to be much, going on. Well, at night, all these kind of bugs and crap come out of the woods, and they come out of the ocean, and they crawl up and all that kind of thing. Well, when you're poor, you just kind of suffer through it. And I was sleeping there, getting up early. The sun was just coming up, and right there next to the ocean, the waves are gently lapping and coming in, and I'm going, oh, wow. That was a heck of a night. Boy, I saved some money on that stuff, Popped my head up, kind of like a turtle laying there. And all of a sudden, it was bad timing because the chippies, or the highway patrol, or whatever, the beach patrol guys are, and they see me like this, and they take their little Jeep, and they come off the road, and they go humping over the sand like that, and come screeching up like that. And I'm just getting up out of the thing going, oh, this isn't looking good. They get out, and he did everything but pull their weapons and say, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, just sleeping, sir." "Well, you're not allowed to sleep on the beach here in California." And then I used my famous line that I really like to use when I'm in trouble. I said, "Well, I'm from Nebraska, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that." And one guy looks at me and he goes, "Are you an alcoholic?" I said, "Well, no, but I sure tied one on last night." I was probably no was the right answer because they must have kind of a protocol if you answered yes to that. And they said, "Well, can we see some identification?" And so, I pull out my Northwestern Bell ID and I show it to them, and they're going, "Well, you can't do that here. Get your stuff and get." So I did get my stuff, and I got out of there and went back to the convention the next day and sat all around with all these, artificial intelligence guys. You listen to it for a while, and then I'm going, I'm not sleeping on this beach. I think I might as well cut out early, take the ferry on over to Catalina Island. I'm going, yeah, I've never been there. I heard it's pretty nice. And they said, "Well, okay, yeah, okay, great, I'll go." And so I got my little backpack, and I'm going along and go across, and from Nebraska, just being on the ocean, it's just like, wow, this is so mind-blowing. You just can't believe it. Well, you get off at Catalina. I don't know if you've ever been there, but basically it's just one cove, and this guy called Wrigley, he's the one that owned the chewing gum, the Chicago Cubs. But he'd been gone, and he designated or gave the island to the people and said, it's a national park now. And, well, I didn't know all this because I don't believe in doing research before I go somewhere. I just kind of go. Well, I get up and I walk up at the information thing, and the guy's looking at me with my backpack, and he goes, "There's no camping on the island here." And I'm going, oh, well, okay, yeah. And then he kind of ticked me off. And I said, well, what can you do? He says, well, you can walk up to Wrigley's old mansion and then look around, and then you should get back to the ferry and, leave. Didn't like my kind around there, I guess. Well, anyways, I walked up to Wrigley's little thing and looked around and then going, oh, golly, geez, this is nice. And I thought, this guy can't tell me where I can sleep and where I can't sleep. The heck with him. I'm just going to kind of trot up down the road, see what I can see, and I'll throw out the sleeping bag and everything will be cool. Start walking up this they got basically one road that goes around the island. I'm walking along that road and some lady's driving by and she rolls down the window and says, hey, you need a lift? I'm sure, I'm going that way. It's only one way to go. And so we get in the car and just talking, and she says, yeah, living on the island, and I just go for a drive to get away and that type of thing. And I said, well, that's really nice of you. And I said, why don't you just let me off up here at the top of the precipice, because it was a long hump up. I'll just kind of walk from here. And she said, well, okay. That's when I suddenly realized that I made one fatal error. I didn't have any water. I was getting thirsty, and then I saw this little sign that says airport, and so I thought, well, hell, I'll make it to the airport. They got to have water at an airport. Let's see what we can do. Well, the sun was going down, just sitting up there on that island looking out and going, wow, this is so cool. And I kept walking, and then the sun went down, and I kept walking and walking and walking and getting thirstier and thirstier and thirstier. And I saw another sign that said airport, but it never said how far. And then finally, I don't know, it was about, 10, 11 o'clock at night. And I'm going, man, I got to get some water. I'm turning around and I'm going back. I see in the road, there's this kind of little squiggly thing, and it's got this kind of triangle head on it, and it's kind of dark. And I'm looking, I'm going, that's a snake. And it was a big rattler like this, and he was pointed that way, and I'm trying to go that way, and so I just kind of went around the side like this, and then I started walking, and I'm going, God, I didn't think they had snakes on the island. And well, maybe my mistake, and I'm walking and walking and walking, and I mean, it's just getting like it's a death march from Baton. I kept walking, and suddenly I saw a light coming down from the road back this way, and I thought, I could stick my thumb out and catch a ride, but I was too proud. I was proud Nebraskan, I'm sitting there, and I stepped off the dark into the dark alongside the road, and I see this old truck. He's coming down the road, and he's going, and he goes by me, and I just looked kind of pitiful. I didn't do anything, and I must have looked pitiful enough, and the guy pulls down, and I see his brake lights goes on, and I go walking up to the truck, and it was a Mexican individual, nicest guy in the world. His name was, I think, honest to God, I think it was Pedro or something. He used to work for the Wrigleys. He helped the girls ride their horses around the island, and he was just still a mainstay from back in the old days. And he says, well, if you want to ride, he says, well, you go ahead and hop on in, but you got to understand that Pedro had this dog that was kind of his seat, where he was sitting there on the passenger side with the window down, and he, hollered at him and, said, Bowser or whatever the dog's name was, get in the back. So the dog had a window in the back of the truck, and he jumps through it, and he gets in the back, and I get in and I sit. And so then Pedro's telling me about all the old times where he was helping the girls, and he said he really liked his wife, and he said the old guy, he was kind of an ornery fellow, but just what he was. And so we drove, as we were driving back to the main Catalina, where they got that little planetarium or whatever their thingy, I look at him and I say, well, he said, I'm not sure, but I said, I thought I saw a snake in the road. And I said, this is the island. You don't have snakes on islands, right? And old Pedro looks at me and he kind of goes, oh, he says, at night, he says, they just come tumbling out of the rocks. He says, they like the road. It's kind of warm, and they can kind of, warm their bodies up during the night and that kind of thing. And I'm going, oh, okay. Well, Pedro took me down to the main part of Catalina Island, and they had a water machine there, thank God, and I bought a couple of them, and there weren't any bars, there wasn't any activity at all, so I thought, oh God. So, well, you always go back to the hole that you remember, and so, well, I'll go down by the beach. I didn't want to have any more run-ins with chippies or whatever, so I went down, slept by the beach, and, fought off the crabs until the ferry came the next morning, and went back to the island, and I thought, my troubles are over. Well, that was just one situation where, I was kind of on the edge. But that reminded me of the time that they sent me to Seattle. It was University of Washington, and they had their latest and greatest artificial intelligence and all the interfaces that go with it. And I remember this one place where they had little goggles, like you see now, the kids got them and all that kind of stuff. Back then in the early 80s, it was like nobody had ever seen anything like this. So I put these goggles on, and they're saying, okay, now you can navigate through the different dimensions, the different paradigms, and you can do, well, I got them on, and I'm going, boom, and it's just going boom, 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 boom. And the guy says, whoa, 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 Tex, he says, you have to slow down, because if you want to see what's in each one of these visuals, you have to slow it down a bit. So what happened then is you slow it down, and it would be like going through a bubble, and then you'd burst through this thing, and in there it'd be nothing but jungle, and then you go, then you'd be down into underneath the sea, and it was pretty fascinating. And so I watched all this stuff, and went to the one place where they had the little thing where they said, put this, look in here and see what you see. I looked in there and I saw a square box and a triangle, and I'm going, ooh, whoopee. And I said, well, that's not too special, sir. And he says, well, see, look over there this way. He says, there's nothing down there, sir. He goes, now look in that box. And I looked in that box, and I saw that square and that triangle. And he says, yeah. He says, those objects are not, your eyes are not picking up those objects. We're actually drawing that image on your eyeball from that little thing inside in the mask. I go, whoa. This is beyond. And the guy that did it was the one that did the heads up for the fighter pilots. So I can't imagine what they got now. I mean, this was in the early 80s. Come on, but really. You find out where all the parties are, where all the sweets, and you go eat up and you tank up, and you go, okay, now it's time to find some place to go. So I did that. I went and I tanked up, got ready to go. Make sure you go to the bathroom, because it's not really fun to go, pooping in the woods like a bear. So I get all that done, and I'm starting to walk down, and there's this place called Freeway Park in Seattle. Seattle actually had no place for this park in downtown, so they actually built it over the freeway. So you get this cement enclosure or whatever, and they put dirt on it, and they grew pine trees and bushes and flowers and yada yada. This might be a pretty good place to go ahead and hang out for the night and wait for the next day and catch a plane and go home. It's Seattle, you gotta understand, it's kind of raining and drizzling, and I see this guy coming up on the sidewalk. There's just me and him. He doesn't have an umbrella. I don't have an umbrella. I don't know what those are. He's looking, and I saw him look at me, and I'm going, oh, no, please. just leave me alone, leave me alone. So I look the other way, kind of like this, walking by, and then he comes over to me. He says, hey, you got a cigarette? I go, no, sir. I said, but I do have Swisher Sweets. Would you like one? What the heck? Well, he could tell I was probably, poorer than he was. And he takes it and he lights it up, and we're just sitting there talking. He goes, man, he says, I'm having a heck of a day. So I was here with this guy, yada, 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 and he threw this stuff on me, and he goes, here, smell this. And like a fool, I go, oh, I don't know what it was that somebody had thrown on him, but it was something terrible. And he says, we're going to have to make up for this. He says, I've got a gun and a car. He says, let's go rob a liquor store. He says, I'll drive and you can take the gun. And I said, no, I got to go this way. And so, luckily he was nice enough to let me go on my way. And so I'm walking through there, and it's getting kind of dark, and I see these guys over by these bushes, and I'm going, I don't want to go that way. And then I go over to some trees, and I go, no, I don't want to go over that way. And what I've always learned is you got to hear them coming. I'll just there's some low-lying bushes and stuff, so I grabbed my pack and I drug it in underneath it. I'm crawling under the bushes, and I get down there, and I'm laying in my sleeping bag and going, okay, let's wait for the sun to come up. And I swear to God, all of a sudden I hear this bang. It had to be a weapon as far as I could tell. And I'm going, man, I am not moving from this bush. I'll just wait and see what happens, if there's screams, sirens, whatever. And all of a sudden I hear this. Then it was, I had managed to put myself right next to the sprinkler system that evidently goes on at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just lay and it's just spraying me all wet. So I did the only thing I could do is I took my feet in my sleeping bag and I put it over top of the nozzle that was spraying me. And then I just kind of laid there smoking my cigar while my sleeping bag slowly filled up with water. And then after 10 minutes or whatever it was, it quit. And I just thought, I'm not getting out of here. I was too scared to move. So I just laid there until the next morning and got up. So that's my extent of artificial intelligence. And I could sure use a lot more, as you can all tell. So anyways, you all have a good day and enjoy your life. Stay healthy. Thank you. You got something you can slice.